Happy Sunday, everyone. Welcome to Our Issues Birmingham. Today's guest is our new police chief, City of Birmingham, Mike Pickett. How are you doing, Mike?
Doing great. How are you?
Our chief, I should say, would
Just
be the
Mike.
appropriate words. Welcome to our show, and welcome to your new position.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Would be remiss if I didn't say, as long as you've been in the position, first interim and then permanently appointed, it's been noticeably different in terms of reporting of particularly violent crime. But before we talk about that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to the position that you're in now? Are you a local person?
I am. I'm from Birmingham, actually. Born and raised right here in Birmingham. I'm from the west side of Birmingham, kind of like the Ensley, Green Acres area specifically.
My side of town?
Your side of town. West is best. So from there, I attended Ramsey High School, which I'm a graduate, 2002 graduate of Ramsey High School. Went on to Miles College, graduated from Miles College. During my time in college, I actually took a brief break and went to Police Academy, where that was in 2004, and became a police officer. Of course, went back to school, finished, got my degree, and just really focused on my career in law enforcement after graduation. So a little bit about my career in law enforcement. I started at West Precinct, which I had an amazing time there. I worked there for about 5.5 years, became a field training officer at West Precinct. And then soon after that, I got picked up for a task force where I got to see more of the city and help police more of the city on the citywide task force at the time. I did about a year or so there, and then I got picked up for a more, how can I say it, a more serious task force, which was the crime reduction team, where I was attached or deputized by the U.S. Marshal Service.
Oh, yeah. Marshal Keeley and I are good friends.
Yeah, and at that time it was Mike Richards was the commander out there.
I remember.
So we had a lot of fun. In that group we targeted, the most violent criminals and fugitives for violent crimes throughout the city of Birmingham, really throughout Alabama. But we focused mainly on the city of Birmingham. So I did that for about 6 years, and then went into executive protection briefly, and then I started to climb the ranks. So last of which was the Deputy Chief of Special Operations Group, or Special Operations Bureau. And with that, I oversaw the SWAT team, the narcotics division, our intelligence unit, the executive protection for all of the city buildings, if you will, all major and special events. So speaking on special events, kind of how I got the role of deputy chief is through my work and efforts with the World Games, if you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
2022.
And we have the police games coming up, don't we?
We got the police games coming up.
That's a big deal.
In June. It's huge. It's huge. So during that time, I was charged with being the law enforcement branch director for the World Games, which was Alabama's first and only Tier 1 event.
Right.
So there was a lot of work that went into it, a lot of coordinating with federal, state, and local agencies to pull off that massive security plan that we had to do. Essentially, the World Games is on the same level as like the Super Bowl. Yep. So my work and efforts in that helped, propel me to deputy chief. And then I began to oversee that, all those units and, the bureau that I mentioned earlier. And after about 3 years as deputy chief, I got the opportunity to be interim chief and see if I could lead the department. The mayor asked me to, step in that role once our former chief put in his paperwork to retire. I had to fill the gap. So while in that space, I did the best that I could, and here we are now when I've recently been appointed to chief.
Like I said in the beginning, it appears that you've really made some giant strides in a very short period of time. I assume when you're working your way up the ranks and you're not at the top of the food chain, you see things that are going on that you might consider doing differently. Did you implement things that you had been thinking about should have been implemented before you got there? as soon as you got there?
Yeah, so as soon as I assumed the position, I have familiarity with the department as I've been here for 20 years. So there are some areas that I knew could use immediate change, and some that I had to assess from the new vantage point of actually being the chief. Because you do have to, once you get into a position, there are more things that you're privy to that you may not have agreed with, but from a different vantage point, you may agree with those things. So upon getting into the position of chief, I had to do an assessment. Take a moment, do an assessment, and then if I still felt there were some things that needed to be changed immediately, I implemented those changes, and I continue to assess the rest of the department.
Yeah, I would think it's an ongoing project.
Yes, it is.
And constantly changing. Well, we've clearly seen, at least since the beginning of the year, I would say. When did you take official interim status?
So interim was November 29th.
And then you became officially
chief on April the 1st.
Okay, so just a few weeks ago.
Correct.
Well, nothing personal, Carol, but I know you're bored without anything to write about like you did for so long, but I've noticed a staggering decrease in homicides in our city. And for that, we are very grateful for whatever changes you've made. I want to talk about that when we come back from break, because I've always felt that that problem was limited to a very small segment of our population, although it was reported as if it was a citywide problem. It was just a pod of people that were acting out. But we'll
Correct.
talk more about that in a minute.
Yes, sir.
This is Our Issues Birmingham. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with our Chief of Police in just a few minutes. Don't go away. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. We finished last segment talking about the downturn in homicides, but overall, we've actually had a tremendous downturn in violent crime in general. And I've always felt and talked to the other chiefs about and the mayor about that the violence that we saw that occurs, some of which is not policeable, if it's happening within the home, and there's a domestic dispute and somebody shoots somebody, there's nothing to prevent that from a law enforcement standpoint, I don't believe. That has to take place with other programs like the Restore program, and the Jefferson County's doing some of that in the juvenile system, trying to educate people on conflict resolution.
Right.
Do you agree with my assessment that the violence that we were seeing so much last year was happening within a very small segment of our population?
Absolutely. Essentially, and this is the case in most cities. It's the case in most cities and most communities. There's very, very small percentage of individuals that choose to break the law, and an even smaller percentage that choose to commit violent crimes. That being said, there are those instances where police just can't be there. We can't be inside of people's homes during domestic situations. We can't be inside of people's homes when there's an argument and it's a conflict resolution thing that just gets out of hand. And then also there are spaces where it's difficult for us to be when someone may be attempting to buy an illegal gun or buy drugs in an alleyway behind an abandoned house. Those are tough spaces for law enforcement to be in at the right time. What we do is we do try to go out and identify, those areas where it may be a high crime area, and we focus our efforts there. But of course, when certain things happen, we wish that law enforcement could be there. And sometimes we get there really quickly. But oftentimes when it's a homicide, there's not a police officer that's around to be able to intervene.
Even with our spot shotters, those are after the fact. And we have a tremendous number of cameras around the city that are monitored 24/7. I have one across the street from my office, as a matter of fact. You can't be everywhere.
Right.
And part of that problem, at least recently, has been a reduced number of personnel. Some changes have been made since you have taken over. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on with recruitment and things that would encourage people to get involved if they want to get involved?
Absolutely. So we're seeing an uptick right now. You know, I can start by saying that even as I was transitioning into the role, Mayor Whitford made it a priority to focus on the recruitment and the retention of our officers. You know, not just, you know, making it more attractive for, you know, officers that are seeking, or people that are seeking a career in law enforcement, to come to Birmingham instead of, you know, going out of state or going to other cities, to actually come to Birmingham because there's great opportunity here. So we have that incentive that the mayor presented, the city council supported, almost $16 million that they have, you know, dedicated to us to retain and recruit more personnel. That being said, since I've been in this space, I've worked very closely with our Deputy Chief, Darius Malden, who has done an outstanding job building out the recruitment and retention program.
He's the voice.
He is the voice. He is lead on that project, and he's done an amazing job. I'm just there to assist and give him all the support that he needs as we work together to recruit the best, you know, the best in the city, the best around the nation to come to Birmingham. That being said, it's looking really good this year, and I think it's going to continue to move in this direction. So we had 10 officers to start in January. We got 27 in right now that's in the academy. They're set to graduate on May 2nd. And then right now, as you've probably seen in the news, we have a class right now that started last week that is now 50 officers, 50 recruits.
Wow.
50 new recruits right now. We started with 49 and we added one on Monday of this week. So we actually have 50, and that was the number that I was targeting. We have 50 in this class right now. And I'm very confident that we have another class starting in July. I'm very confident that that class will be even more.
Well, in terms of police officers, and you may not know precisely the exact number, but how many do we have and how many do we need?
So right
in
now,
a perfect world.
Right. So right now we're trending closer to 700 officers. So we're getting close to back to where we need to be.
Is that your target goal? 700?
No, 700 is not the target goal, but we're hovering around 700 right now. I'm actually going to have essentially a third party come in, do an assessment to make sure that we right size not only the department as it relates to personnel, but also the beats, the structure of the sectors of how we patrol and deploy our resources. We want to actually do an assessment of that, and then I'll do a personal assessment as well to make sure that we're providing services and doing our deployments as most effectively and efficiently as possible. But I don't think the number is, over 1,000. Sometimes you hear 1,000 thrown out there. It doesn't quite take that much. The facts are this: the population of Birmingham has slightly gone down. So there's no way that we need more officers than what we needed when we had more residents.
Yeah.
So we've also had improvements in our technology. So we're getting assistance, like you mentioned, with more cameras. We're implementing drones. We have more strategic way of deploying our resources and personnel to be more effective. So I think that number is going to be a little bit lower than 1,000.
We're going to talk a little bit more about cooperation with other agencies when we come back from break. This is Our Issues Birmingham. We're going to take a short break and get back with the Chief in just a few minutes. Don't go away. Welcome back to Our Issues Birmingham. We're learning a lot about things that are going on to help reduce what's been apparently, to those that are on the outside looking in, a violent city. But we're on the improvement with the decline, and that takes cooperation. So how are we doing statistically with the reduction in crime? And it takes a village. So I assume you got other folks helping you, especially the Marshal Service, who I happen to have, and Sheriff Petway in our close. And
So crime is trending down, specifically violent crime and our homicides. Right now, we're currently hovering around very high 40s, close to 50% reduction in homicides for this year in comparison to last year. So we're very thrilled about that, and we think it's what are the contributing factors to that is, of course, our just being more intentional about the way we patrol and aggressively target and focus on the most violent offenders in our community. So that being said, hats off to our patrol guys and women that are going
they're
out.
in the trenches.
They're in the trenches every day. They're the true first responders that are responding to those calls, that are being preventive and preemptive with their efforts. Just hats off to them. And then also we have our special enforcement teams. It's a team that I developed at the end of last year that go out. They do respond to calls, high priority calls, but then they also focus on the worst individuals in the worst areas, and they dedicate those efforts there, and they're yielding a lot of arrests that we report on weekly. Then also we have our crime reduction team that I used to be a part of, like I mentioned, with the U.S. Marshal Service. They go out and they focus on those who commit murders, robberies, attempted murders, things of that nature. The trigger pullers. They really, really focus on those individuals and the swift apprehension of them to go ahead and get them off the street. And what that does is it prevents them from being able to kill again, and also prevents someone else from being able to retaliate, which could cause, more murders. So us intentionally being more present and then focusing on that small percentage is yielding us dividends. To that end, we also have our clearance rate with our homicides. It's hovering around 80% right now.
Now, explain to the people what clearance rate means.
Yeah, so what the clearance rate is, when you have a case, you have cases, the clearance rate is how many cases can you actually solve? Can you figure out, okay, this was the suspect or the subject that committed this crime?
Remember, they may know who committed a crime, but there's a distinction between knowing and being able to prove it.
Correct.
So when I say that, I'm saying they need your help to get to this clearance rate. But
Absolutely.
I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you made that point. The community has been an integral part of us being able to apprehend these folks as quickly as possible. Communicating with us, whether it's a vehicle that left the scene, or a description of a person that left the scene, or that was still on scene, or what have you. When they communicate that to us in real time, we will do the heavy lifting. We don't need them to get involved and lay hands on anyone to try to be heroes. We'll take those risks if they can just simply communicate to us what they saw, what they heard, things of that nature. We can move on that information as quickly as possible and get those violent folks off the street.
So back to the definition of clearance rate.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
When you say clearance rate,
right,
you mean when police officers close a case, that's when they put the person in jail, and y'all report that as closed.
Correct. Right.
We report that as opening.
I got you. Yeah.
What you catch, my profession has to defend, because the burden of proof is always on the state to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. They have a job to do. I have a job to do. They call it a symbiotic relationship. We're in the same business, but we're all interested in having a safe society.
Absolutely.
That's the goal. Now, in terms of if you had to ask what would be helpful from our community, I think, I'll try to put some words in your mouth, but somebody wants to think about a career in law enforcement, how would they go about making that happen?
right? So they can visit our website.
Okay.
If they can just go to that website and apply, it'll go through the personnel board. They'll do some assessments. We'll say this, we have the graduation that's on May the 2nd. The very next day, we're gonna do a little Birmingham blitz. I know the personnel board had a blitz last week, but we're gonna do another blitz, but it's gonna be Birmingham PD. We'll be focusing on that one. Right after we have this graduation, and I'm gonna talk about the numbers on this graduation real quick if I have a second.
You do.
All right, so we're gonna have 27 folks graduate, men and women that are becoming police officers, okay? Then we'll have 6 lateral transfers, okay, that will be getting sworn in as well. So this is police officers from other agencies that are coming to Birmingham to join our team to help, make Birmingham safer. And then we'll also have our 50 recruits there to showcase them as well. And it's just gonna be a great event. And the very next day, we're actually going to have a PAS or a physical agility screening right there at the Crossplex. You can come do the run. You can come do the physical agility test. And I actually did it, and I may do it again because it's actually kind of fun to do it. And see, if you got what it takes to be a Birmingham police officer.
I do not. I've got 2 titanium hips. It's not a disqualifier, though.
No, it's not.
Well, thank you so much for coming and being on our show.
Yes,
I feel real good about having you in the position that you're in, and I see nothing but positive things going forward. So whatever you're doing, it seems to be working. Just keep doing it and always tweaking it. It's a moving target, I'm sure, and it always is changing.
Yes, sir.
But I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
This is Our Issues Birmingham. We thank Chief Pickett for being with us, and we'll see you next Sunday.
Alabama Weather Authority. In your home, in your office, in your pocket. Constantly updated by your ABC 3340 weather team and available to you anytime, anywhere. Local weather from local experts. ABC 3340, the Weather Authority, working for you.